Hi everyone. This video is going to cover one of the most important basic aspects of 3D content creation, organization. It is extremely important to maintain proper file structures as a digital artist for all kinds of reasons. Not being able to find your files will cause you to spend wasted time searching for items, and it will also cause you to not correctly be able to load assets into your scene. This means that you're going to be spending a lot of time backtracking and trying to fix things rather than actually doing work. This concept of organization also becomes even more important when you enter the professional world of game and animation creation. When you're working with teams of people, 3D content creation gets extremely more complicated because you have more files and people working on different files at the same time. So you have things like models, lighting, reference images, sounds, the rigs, which is the bones and skeletons of the characters, the actual animation, the reference objects, 2D assets. There's a lot of different things that can kind of go missing. And I guess a good way to think about this is imagine that you were working at a desk and you had a book report that you're writing. So you have your books on the desk, you have a file or a folder that contains a bunch of paperwork on it, and you also had your pen and pencils and everything like that all scattered around your desk. Well, if your book report that you were working on, you just took maybe the notebook with you. So you had all of the written notes that you were writing all the information on your book report. You just took the notebook and then you went and sat at another desk. Well, you left a bunch of stuff on your other desk and you need that stuff. So how we work with organized files in Maya is similar to that same idea where you need to bring everything with you from one spot to another, or not just from you to one spot to another. If you're working at different computers, likely you're going to be working at one computer this semester. But in the likeliness of, well, the obvious requirement of you sending me your project and exercise files, I need to be able to get all of that stuff. And so just giving me a Maya file, which we'll be looking at in a second, doesn't give me all of the stuff that you need. This stuff takes some practice, and it is going to be important for you to get used to this process. I do admit, as an artist, the sterile feeling and the organization aspect of art, it's not my favorite thing to do. I'm not exactly the most organized person in the real world. If you ask my wife that, she will definitely agree with that statement. But in the digital world, this is your livelihood, and it could cost you a job. And it will definitely add to stress if you can't find certain project files. And I know as a young artist, it probably feels, oh man, I got only this much time to spend working on a project. I'm going to get this knocked out as fast as possible. But that route doesn't exactly get you the project done in an efficient way. It's actually going to cause you to go back and do more work. So spending a little bit of time and making sure things are organized is going to be really a great idea. So the first thing I want to show you, this is going to be our first project or exercise, and we'll work with that in a second. But I want to show you this lesson content. So this is the archive. And what is an archive? It's a zipped up folder. So we need to download that. So once that downloads, I've already got a demo folder here. So I have no idea how you have your computer organized at home. That's not my job. That's your job to stay organized with that type of stuff. But what I would recommend definitely is to have a specific spot on a hard drive. Now, it's better to have it on a physical hard drive rather than a flash drive because you can burn them out reading and writing. It's not so much of an issue now as it was back in the day, but you definitely don't want to keep reading and writing to a hard drive. You should write to a primary hard drive. So I have like an external spinning hard drive or an SSD hard drive that I work directly off of. So this is my courses, and this is going to be my intro to animation. So that's set up. I don't know, maybe this is making sense, maybe not. But hey, this is the class that we're in, is intro to animation. So maybe you should have a folder that's called that. And then within here, we can make another folder that maybe it's exercises. And then in here, we can grab this obstacle course, I'm going to open this up. So now they have that. I'm just going to take this and I'm going to drill into here. So you'll notice it's actually giving me multiple folders. The one that we need, if we drill into this one, you'll notice there's scenes, source images, and workspace. So that is this folder, obstacle course. So I'm going to go back one area and grab this one. And I'm just going to drag that into my exercises. I don't need all those other folders. When archiving happens, it sometimes goes a little bit beyond where it needs to be. What you need to be able to do is have something like this set up so when you drill into it once, you have these files and especially the workspace, scenes, and images, source images. That's what we need to find. So why do we need to find that stuff? Well, in Maya, and I'm going to let that boot up here as I talk. In Maya talks to the folders, or at least it calls certain areas from different folders to be able to find things. And if this sounds super technical and it's not like you're making a character move around or like something blow up or something, I totally understand that. This isn't exciting stuff at all. But this is the stuff we have to get used to just so we can get to that level of art. So it's that technical stuff that I admit I also don't like to think about either, but I'm trying to save your life here. So with Maya, once that boots up here and it's still booting up, we're going to go and tell this to look to a certain directory. So right now, if I were to go to File, Open Scene, this is going to a different project. So I can't actually open the project that I'm working on. I need to tell Maya to set a project that I'm working on. And the project is the exercise that I had you guys download, and that is that obstacle course. So what we're going to do is go to Set Project. And right now I'm under my projects drive. I don't need to be there. I need to be under my courses drive. Now this might be different for you, and that's totally fine. Now I made that intro to animation, and then exercises, an obstacle course. That is the project that we are going to work on. So I'm going to hit set. Now, if it doesn't do anything, then you did it correctly. If you set a project that isn't actually a project, it will tell you that it can't find the project. So if it doesn't do anything, that's the good thing, which I know can be confusing. But I can prove to you that it actually did something, because if I go now to File, Open Scene, there it is. So instead of it being, I think it was a Sean and Jen or something like that, now it's saying Assignment 1 Obstacle Course. So this is great, because now if I hit open and just continue, there we go. Now I have this project that is opened up, which is technically an exercise for us. And so now if I close these layers and open them by making that V show up, I can make different parts show up. Now, I could still open Maya files without having the archives or the project set. It will open it, but what it'll end up doing is something like, so I'm just going to open up this Mage. I'm going to break this connection. Your Maya file will probably look more like this, where the Mage doesn't have a texture on it. And there's two things to think about when you see that. So if the Mage doesn't have a texture on it, the first thing I would try is to go over here. Make sure under Shading, Hardware Texturing is on. Now it's saying it's on for me. So that's the problem. Something's going on. The reason why that isn't linked is because I broke the connection on purpose. I'm going to reconnect that. The reason why is because inside of our material, which you don't need to know a lot of this stuff, I'm just showing you things that could happen. The texture that it's linking to, if you didn't open that by setting a project first, it doesn't know that it needs to find this or where to find it. It's going to be looking in different folders, the last folder that you ever worked in, which is probably by default going to be a C drive project. So you want to make sure you, again, set your project before you open stuff. And that saves you a lot of time and energy to try and find things. Now, you could still technically animate this thing without even having that material on there. If I were to turn that off, you can see that it still works. It's just that it's less enjoyable to be able to animate a character if you can't really see where the eyes are. So that's very, very important to be able to load those things up. Okay, so again, If you see something like this, first thing to check is hardware texturing is on under your shading. And there we go. So that's cool. I can open up a file, I can work on it, but how do I save things to make sure that it actually sticks? So right now, if I were to go to File, Save Scene As, it's again going to go where I had placed that folder. So that's great, but I probably don't want to save over that same file. So right now it's assignment_1 or assignment1 underscore obstacle course. So we can put maybe our last name there and then a number. So this is a way that I try to stay organized sometimes if I'm thinking about it correctly, which you should be. So now if I hit save as, I now have that file saved, and it is now not the main one that I just downloaded. Because here's a little secret about working in 3D or just working on computers in general. You're going to make mistakes. So it's a good idea to have your vanilla file where you had just opened it and then save a new version over that with a different name. That way you can still go back to that original one and nothing is broken. So so now that I have all this stuff, I could also do, let's say, increment and save. So if I do that, and I'm going to hit continue, you'll notice that if I go to open scene now, I do have my original one. There's the date and time of that. And then I have my name right there. And then you have this one that has this funky _01.0001.mb. What that is an increment and save, meaning that you're not going to save over the last one. And this is actually a really important thing to realize. It is so much better to save over a new Maya scene than to save over the last one you just did. The reason why is because you could be working and then accidentally make something delete or something weird. So you can always go back to that last one and pull that one up rather than, having to worry about, oh no, this entire piece is missing. So that increment and save, Control-Shift-S, is extremely helpful. So if I do that again, save as, and now it should make another one. So yeah, I didn't set that one up. For increment and save, let's see. Okay, so you do have to make a modification of your scene before increment and save will work. So let's say I move these around and I go to File, Increment and Save again, and let's see. Okay, so there it is, .0003. So File Open, if I go to that, now I have multiple versions of these things. Now that may drive you insane, and obviously they're all the same timestamp almost. That's something to be aware of, that increment and save is great for working on one main area. But if you were working on something more complex, like if you were building a robot or something, and maybe you're working on a robot's arm, it would be great to actually put down the name of the thing you're working on and then like _arm. And that way you know when you're incrementing and saving what part of the model or animation that you were working on. Those little notes save you some time and energy as well. Okay, let's say that I finished all this stuff up and I am ready to send this off to the instructor. And so obviously I didn't, but let's say that I did that. So if I went to File, and then I go into this button right here, Archive Scene, I'm going to press that. And it says it was modified, so you cannot archive a scene until you save it. And so that way it knows when you saved that you have exactly the same thing inside of an archive. So when I do this, I hit OK, you'll notice it made a .zip. And if I go into there, obstacle course, scenes, it made this thing. And it's going to have the same name as the last file that you saved. So making an archive is exactly the thing that you were doing for this project. So now we have the scene, and that's the scene that you were working on, and we also have the texture wrapped up. So this is a great way so you can send this to your art or your instructor. Everything is in there. So I also know for whatever reason it's putting this into source images over here, but I can access that. So I know that the image and the Maya file are there. Now, animations and models and everything like that, that stays contained within a Maya file. You don't need, it doesn't make extra files there. But anytime you're bringing in something external, which is like a texture or a sound effect, those are things that get added separately to Maya. And that's why these archives are super important. If this feels super over your head, we're going to be, like I was saying, if this feels kind of over your head, we're going to be practicing this stuff. And again, send me an email if you feel like this is a little bit strange. The more you do this stuff, the better you're going to get at it. But it's very important to archive. Another thing that's very important to do, if you have an archive scene, like we have here, it doesn't show up directly in there. Let's let me navigate to my folder here. Okay, so there it is right there. This I highly recommend putting onto Google Drive. So get a Google account if you don't have one, and your Google Drive is where I would recommend you dragging your zipped up archives to, because everything's contained in there. And that way, if you lose something on your hard drive, it's not going to be lost on the Google Drive. I also recommend having an external flash drive or a little thumb drive that you can place things onto as well. Am I paranoid about losing work? Yeah, I've had stuff get lost, and it absolutely is terrifying. So I'm telling you this now. I can't do anything to bring back things from the dead. They are gone, and that is unfortunate. So this is me telling you, I have warned you, back up your work. And this is something that should be part of your practice. You should absolutely, at the end of a day, instead of jumping on Discord and then forgetting everything you're doing and talking to your friends and surfing Facebook and then, playing some video games, make sure you're cleaning up shop. Make sure that you absolutely are backing your stuff up. You do not want to have the moment of realization that everything you did disappeared. Has that happened to me? Yes. Has it happened to me multiple times? Yes. It's one thing to lose a quick exercise that you do. It's another thing to lose an entire semester's worth of work. And it's another thing to lose work when you are getting paid by a client, because that means that you can no longer get paid because you lost the stuff that you were supposed to send to them. That is not a fun thing. So if you back things up, you can get it back. And that's something that, it's an obvious thing, I think, to a lot of people, but it's very, very important. So that's it for this exercise here. We have a number of other ones coming up, and I will see you guys in the next one.